Are you sick of endlessly posting on social media with no engagement? Well, other than your fabulous mother-in-law who dutifully makes a potentially unrelated comment, it's not really growing your business, is it? It's time to use strategies that work, like podcast guesting. I'm Shauna Rodriguez, host of Authentically Amplified and podcast strategist, helping purpose-driven solopreneurs connect to their ideal clients through podcasting. I've got 2 full episodes on podcast guesting. To make things easy, let me break down just one strategy for you. Strategy 5, which is a different way of doing things. You can still use that content cascade strategy. However, this is the Rapid Authority Accelerator. So this is a way of trying to make you ubiquitous. I don't know the show title that I just saw on Instagram, but I logged on the other day and every other post was related to it. It has land in the title and it's on Paramount. Like seriously, if you know it, like put it in the comments below. But I can go to Paramount and search land and I'm sure it'll come up. What I remember is the woman's dress. She had this fabulous dress. She must have been wearing it on the red carpet for when they did it. But it was a very simple dress, but it was very iconic. Her partner, whoever her date was, her partner could have been her husband because I don't know her, don't know him. But it was like, I should know them. They were a fabulous couple. They were very connected, very sweet. That dress is very iconic. And then I was scrolling and I was like, wait, she looks like the same woman in these clips. And the clips were so different, very grainy, beige, looked like Texas oil land. It had, is it Billy Bob Thornton? Is that his name? The guy from Sling Blade, right? I think that was him. Maybe it wasn't. You could also correct that in the comments. So had this guy in the clips, but she was the same woman, like the same length hair. She's not especially iconic. So it's interesting. You could tell it was her from her being like red carpet dressed to then being in this other scene, right? Where she's in this more beige scene, Texas with a rattlesnake, whatever else. But seriously, every other thing on Instagram, and I'm not following any of them, but it's like they had so much advertising that was every other thing on my feed was them. And so Paramount, because they already have a very iconic their thing, right? And land, something about land was in the title of the show. And that's what stuck for me. So I could go find it later. But they essentially did what I'm talking about here with this Rapid Authority Accelerator. And this intention is that if you're wanting to like get out and be everywhere, that you do what I'm going to call a power cluster. And so instead of like randomly appearing on podcasts here and there, like you strategically book with podcasts like all at the same time. And this is like very much when books come out, this is the strategy that's used, right? So you get this omnipresent effect so that people are like, oh, there she is there. There she is there. There she is there. Well, there she is there. Who is this woman? Like, what is this? I need to learn more about this so that you actually finally go to Paramount and look up whatever the show is with land in the title, right? So your target audience starts to hear you or see you on social media, if not actually on the podcast, if they're a podcast listener and they see you on the podcast apps, as well as seeing you on social media being advertised for these podcasts, right? So this is like a 2-week window. You pack it in. And so you work with the podcast you're going to be on that like, okay, so these are all going to come out, the last 2 weeks of February. And you work with them to schedule that and to make that happen. And it takes some effort to do that so that you're doing these 4 to 7 podcasts all around the same time. So visibility, right? We're leveling it up. We're leveling it up because that's what we do here. We take it to the next level. The key is each appearance needs to showcase a little different aspect of your expertise while pointing to the same core message. So you don't sound like the exact same thing every single time, every single place. Yes. And hopefully your hosts will help with that a little bit. And the podcast that you're on will help with that a little bit. But remember, you're trying to get on the same core audience. So you're trying to get where they're going to see you. So they're going to be similar podcasts. But you need to make sure that you're bringing a little something different to them, that you're doing the same, pointing to the same end piece, but you're bringing something different. So if I was going to set this up and I'm trying to point to we're going to be launching Solopreneur Sisterhood, right? So if I'm going to try to launch Solopreneur Sisterhood, that actually I'm talking a lot on one of them about podcast guesting and the importance of that for building your business, right? Because solopreneurs need to be able to build their business. So I will talk about podcast guesting, but the key thing I'm pointing back to is community and Solopreneur Sisterhood. I'm pointing back to this, right? And so building your business, but also to the community and Solopreneur Sisterhood. And then I'll go somewhere else and I'll talk about, because I do have ADHD, and that's something that actually comes up. And so ADHD and trying to be in business with having ADHD and what that brings and what the challenges are, and then how that unique community and unique connection, and how the Solopreneur Sisterhood is an example of having that, and things like body doubling you can get from Solopreneur Sisterhood. And then I'll go on to another one and I'll talk about my journey as a podcaster and starting my podcast network, more of my origin story, more of that story. And then in the end, we'll talk about how that has also led to Solopreneur Sisterhood, because I've realized that part of the journey that we all have is that you need to have a successful business before you're going to have the podcast you're meant for, and how that also leads to, I want people to be successful in business so that that community is part of them being successful. So that's why we founded Solopreneur Sisterhood, so that I'm doing different pieces so that people aren't hearing me say the exact same things. They're not going to listen to me 5 times, right? But that it connects. And it is good to have like some stories that are the same, but in different depths. And like, oh, I know this about her, right? I know this about her. I know that she has this story about why the 37 by 27, right? That story will probably come up in each of those podcasts, but I won't tell it in as much depth. I'll just tell a little bit of that story. So that is the Rapid Authority Accelerator, and how you can do power clusters to really give you that authority and that effect. Good strategy, huh? Have you got a lot out of this? I love this. Podcast guesting is such a valuable tool. And I am all about you having the podcast you are meant for. But I also believe that you need to be in a place to do that, because podcasting consistently, and I do recommend starting at weekly and then moving to every other week once you get to that point, right? Is something that we need to have space for. And so podcast guesting to build your authority, build your audience, build your business. And then once your business gets to a place where you can give what you want to have the podcast you're meant for, that you stay with, because I want you to be in and stay in podcasting, is an excellent strategy. Hopefully you've gotten a ton out of this. You've gotten a ton out of the other episode that I did specifically on podcast guesting. And you have a tip sheet that tells you a little bit more, so you have that to reference and go back to. But if you're interested, get in the workshop, the 4-part series that we're going to be doing specifically on podcast guesting, because it is such a valuable opportunity to really unpack some of this, come up with specifically the 4 different magnetic storytelling matrix is what we call it. We talk about it on Apple Podcasts in more depth, but we really go into depth for the workshop. So I hope you check it out. You can look down below and get more information on that. And thank you for being here and making time for this conversation. If you found this video helpful, don't forget, check out these other videos and subscribe. You want to be around to keep growing your business authentically.